Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, sponsored by Jocka Coaching, where we've got so much exciting stuff to talk about today. My name is Clayton Fletcher. I am your host here in beautiful, prestigious Newport News, Virginia. Happy, as always, to be bringing you yet another episode of the world's longest running poker strategy podcast. And guys, I have a special treat for you this week. I've got a repeating guest that's actually a duo. It is not only one special guest, but two, and they are the authors of Improve Your Poker Now, a guide for serious amateurs, a book that we have talked about before on this very podcast. But there's news about that book that we're going to share with you today. Please welcome back to the podcast, Topher, Goggin, and Alex Fitzgerald. Hey, guys.
Hey, Clayton. Thanks for having us.
So glad we could be here that day. Clayton has been at baseball all day watching an Orioles doubleheader and still has time to record this. So it's a big day.
There's no rest for the wicked. So, guys, I understand there is now an audio version of Improve Your Poker Now. Let's talk about that. Topher, you've got that $1 million radio voice. Did you do the voiceover yourself?
I did. Alex has done the audio for some of his other books, but I got to do this one. Ironically, recorded at a place called Crack House Studios, which actually not what you would expect, a very nice recording studio in Lansing, Michigan. But they hooked me up with an audio engineer, and over the course of 3 days, locked me in a little box for 13 hours. And they were quite surprised that I could just keep rambling for that period of time. And I guarantee that no one who actually knows me would have been surprised by that at all. But yeah, it is out. We want to thank you because that book last year went to #1 in poker on Amazon right after we were on this podcast. And I think that that being here really contributed to that. But we've had a great time sharing some of Alex's tips at a level geared to serious amateurs. And one of the great things about doing this audio book is we've been able to do a 2026 update to it, that each of the strategic chapters has an addendum that essentially talks about, hey, this is what has changed a little bit since we wrote the original version. These are some of the things that Alex is teaching now. So if you get the audio version, you get the full up-to-date stuff. Obviously, we're never going to be able to keep a poker book evergreen, but we're trying to stay on top of things as long as we can. Alex, when did you start really using what don't they have as a ranging technique? Because I think that's just absolutely brilliant. And I was so glad we got to put that in.
You know, it's really funny you asked that because I was trying to figure that out the other day. So for those of you who don't know, something I ask my students now is I tell them, listen, when you're trying to range the other person, pretend like it's a game of Battleship. When you know where they're not, you'll have a better idea of where they are. And the way to do that is to start with the best hands first. So if someone just calls you pre-flop, perhaps that rules out the aces, kings, and queens and the ace king because they would have 3-bet with those hands. If the board comes with a flush draw and they just call you when you continuation bet, and perhaps that means a set or 2 pair is less likely because they would have raised those hands to get value from their hands and to also protect their hands. And that seems to help a lot of my students quite a bit. And I always say start with the best hands first and work your way down, because if you can remove the best hands, then you can value bet more thinly, you could bluff bet more. It opens up a lot of doors. And yeah, Topher, I was actually trying to remember when I first got taught that, because that's something I've done in my head for years, but I haven't articulated very well. And I think what happened was when I first got to Vegas, there were the people that everybody thought made a lot of money from poker and the people who actually made money from poker, and they were different people. And I'm not going to get into the people that everybody thought made a lot of money, but they looked at poker one way, and the guys who actually made a lot of money and were very quiet about it, what I noticed was I would ask them about a hand and I'd say, why did you do that bet? And they would say, well, I knew he didn't have this hand, or this hand. And what I noticed is when they worked through a hand, they were very much eliminating hands as they went, as opposed to what most people do, which is start with a mass of hands, get very confused, try to think about way too many things at once, rush themselves, and then get into a decision they don't want to be in. So that would be the origin of where that concept came from.
Makes a lot of sense to me. Alex, I did want to ask you, is this, a lot of our listeners are now trying to get ready for the World Series of Poker and all the other summer fun in the sun out in Las Vegas. Is this a book that you would recommend for someone who is maybe trying to get ready? I see that it's geared towards serious amateurs. Maybe would this be an appropriate book for someone who's maybe going to play the Monster Stack or the Millionaire Maker for the first time, or the Gladiator of Poker, or whatever you have out there? Is that about the right level for your readers?
Absolutely. I think it will be a little bit of a refresher at times for listeners of your podcast, because you guys talk about so many great concepts here, but it does bring in a lot of core concepts that are super helpful when you're playing tournaments. And the thing is, when you're playing at the World Series of Poker, you're going to be playing against fantastic players, but you're also going to be playing against the postman. So as long as you have some solid fundamentals, that's going to take you pretty far. And once you get done with that book, I'd really recommend checking out the book, How to Beat Players Who Never Fold. That's another book that came out around the same time that I penned just by myself. And that one gets a little bit more advanced, and it gets into overbetting and how to deal with players that are not folding, because that seems to be a feature of American poker tournaments. But very much the solid fundamentals that are going to get you very far is going to be improve your poker now.
Very cool. So Topher, what are your plans for this summer? Will we be seeing you out in sunny Vegas?
I think so. I haven't finalized dates. The WSOP kind of changed some of the scheduling around, obviously based around the changes with the main event and so forth. So what used to be events like the Gladiator and similar low buy-in events that were right before the main now are running during the main and sort of towards the back end. So that's probably when I will be there. For me, bang for your buck is huge. I would rather spend my money on a whole bunch of bullets and get a whole bunch of chances. I think I play better that way when it's not, I'm going to put $10,000 in the main event. I've never played the main. I think I wouldn't play well because of being just so committed to trying to stay alive for the experience. And that's something else that Alex has talked about, that these days you need to be prepared for re-entry events and maybe have a couple of bullets ready to go if that'll help you play better. If you don't, you can take advantage of the moron who's not playing well because all he wants to do is rebuy. It's an opportunity on that side too. But that's kind of my plan. And it worked pretty well for me last year. We were promoting the book and so forth. Selfishly, it'd be really nice to go out there and have a good run so that if anybody looks up, who's this other guy on the book, it'll look like I know what I'm doing. And I made 2 day twos and cashed out of 3 events that I started. So
hey, that's not
I
bad.
think it was 5 total bullets and 2 day twos. So I got to come back this year to give all the money back to the people who know what they're doing.
Sounds good. So Alex, what are your plans for the summer?
The main event, most likely. Probably not much more beyond that. Online poker just works a lot better into my schedule. I can usually do 4 or 5 lessons and then play online poker at night. Losing the lesson income, quite frankly, is not something I'm really a fan of. So it costs me a lot of money between lost lesson income, airfare, hotels, meals, and then a few other factors.
Last year, he had to go to a baseball game with me, so that's
that was the good part. That was the fun. But the main event is obviously a great bang for the buck. So I really love the main event when I get to get out to that. And I'd like to play some of the smaller events. Like in a perfect world, I'd just be out there for the 2 months. I love every minute of being out in Las Vegas. It's just, you know how things are. You got to pay the bills. So sometimes I can't be out there as much as I'd like, but God willing, I'll be out there for the main event and a couple other events.
Yeah, very cool. I am planning to play a full schedule as I have for the past several years, maybe 35, 40 tournaments. I'm getting my chops up. I'm working hard. I mentioned already our sponsor, Jocka Coaching, where, I mean, you can find videos where they really focus just on one topic at a time. So if you've only got 15, 20 minutes to work on one particular concept, maybe while you're at the gym or getting ready for something else, and you really can't sit and watch like a 3-hour video, that's who it's for. It's for busy people. And I mean, I know they have some of the best minds in poker as coaches for Jocka Coaching. And one of them is right here on this call. Alex, I know you've done some work with those guys as well. So that's all the endorsement I need. We have a great deal for our listeners. You can use the promo code TPE and save 20% off of your membership, whether it's monthly or annual or whatever else. You can save 20% if you use that promo code TPE. Just visit jocka.poker/TPE. All right, guys, I know we've got a lot to get to with the book, and I want to know, what are some of the updates? You said, Topher, that you've made some changes to the book. So the book was already really good. I mean, I read it the first time around. I thought it was really cool. Serious amateurs, maybe even a little bit beyond that, right? Because it's for people that they know what beats what, right? For sure.
Right. Exactly. and that was one thing that was really gratifying to me, is we sent this thing around to anybody that we could get to listen to it, that were pros, to say, hey, will you take a look at this and maybe give us a blurb if you think it's all right? And multiple of them wrote back and said, this was a good reminder of how to approach people that maybe are not using GTO Wizard, a sponsor here, and so forth, that there are other approaches that exploitative play can be beneficial against those folks. So we're really grateful to get that support from people, including got a really nice endorsement from Jen Shahade, whose brother has been on Jeopardy this week. But in terms of updates, two things come to mind. One is another analogy that Alex uses in his teaching that basically breaks poker down into a rock, paper, scissors game involving nits, stations, and maniacs, and how one beats the other, beats the other, beats the other. So figure out how you're doing and adjust accordingly. So we featured that. The other thing is that Alex, a few years ago, taught a lot of aggressive 3-betting, that if you were a rising amateur player and had a hand that you wanted to play facing a raise, there was a good chance it would be beneficial to 3-bet that. And I noticed that he had kind of scaled back from that recommendation a bit in today's play. And so I wrote and said, hey, we should talk about what's changed in that regard and why maybe that isn't such a great idea all the time. And the short version is that back when Alex was firmly recommending it, 3-betting in position might get you heads up with the betting lead 90% of the time. Now you've got people who will cold call a 3-bet or who will 4-bet you light. And so you've got a little more balance there, especially if you have a hand that will flop well multi-way. Recognize that if you call a raise in position in 2026, you're going to play a multi-way pot, period. You have to be prepared for that. And if you don't want your current holding multi-way, then you either got to 3-bet it and clear out the field, or you need to fold. But beyond that, if you've got the king, queen suiteds or the suited connectors and things, you're saying, hey, I want to play this, but I know I'm going to get action whether I 3-bet it or not, then a little more calling can come in. So Alex should elaborate on that. These are his strategies that I'm trying to break down. But that's one of the key things that went into the update, is how that has changed from the original time frame when we wrote stuff.
Yeah, so the reason that I was advocating 3-betting so much years back is because, yes, you could get a heads up quite often. And the other reason was most people would call your 3-bet and then just check fold you on the flop, which meant you didn't have to go too deep into your chip stack in order to produce some chips, manufacture some chips. And that just stopped being the case because people started cold calling more from behind. More importantly, the person who flatted the 3-bet actually played a little bit better. They would, maybe sometimes chaotically better, but aggressive in the right direction, check raising more, check calling more, floating more, check raising more, in general, just causing more problems. And I started noticing something else, which was if you cold called, almost always the big blind would come along as well. And the big blind just plays like the dumbest player that ever walked the earth. If the guy has the jack 2 suited and the board comes king jack 5, there's a really good chance he calls 2 streets, if not 3 right now. So your potential, I don't know what this is, where a lot of people actually play pretty solid poker. And then out of the big blind, they just revert back to factory settings in 2005, where the, one pair good, I must call. And a lot of times, if you can get them just with a bare mediocre top pair and some kind of draw misses on the turn, you could go for really serious value. So to produce more of those pots, we started advocating a little bit more cold calling. And fortunately, we were able to get that into the new update of this book.
Very cool. So Alex, one follow-up question on that. As more and more players are utilizing solvers such as GTO Wizard, which I talk about every week here on the podcast, and other solvers programs that might be out there, how does the approach to kind of teaching people, as you're a coach, like you mentioned, you have your coaching income, right? Lesson income. So when you're coaching people, but they're also using a solver, what sort of challenges do you face in that? And is that addressed at all in the book?
So we do talk about exploitative strategies in the book, and they are solver approved. I was very big when the solver came around to talk to my friends who were much better with it. And I said, okay, I need you to put in this range and tell me if this exploitative play is actually good or if I'm just talking out of my where. And there were a few that needed to be removed for full disclosure, but most of them did clear. And what we generally came to find out was, if the solver tells you it is a thin river call, it is almost never actually a call in the real world. Because if you remove some of the bluffs, a lot of people, if you ask the average poker player in the card room, okay, the board came king, jack, 8 and the turns of 5, and the person called out of the big blind and then checked you on the turn, what are your bluffs right there? 99 out of 100 people have no idea what they're supposed to bluff in that situation. So the idea anyone's triple barreling you with the correct frequency is slim to none. Obviously, there are some players that really just love to blast away for the sake of it, in which case it's really good to know your minimum defense frequency at that point, so you can just close your eyes and call down and hope for the best. And the best will come quite often when they're overusing that. But what we did find was certain bluffs actually work pretty well. And those were based on especially the updates, which was, hey, what hands does he not have? Something that I really love that the solver taught was, hey, your guy can't really have his best hands right here. You should be spamming overbets a lot. And that was really fun. And we obviously don't graduate to the super, super advanced versions of that in this book, since it was made for serious amateurs, but we do introduce some safer opportunities where you can realize what your opponent doesn't have, and you can emphasize accentuate your plays based on that.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I like using GTO Wizard because I'm not a super techie brainiac electronics guy, and like some of the early solvers used to confuse the heck out of me, but this one I actually can understand, and it's like more user friendly. I think you can play against the computer if you want, you can upload your hands, you can practice, you can do drills, more like what I'm used to from like going to school and taking a test and then getting a score, as opposed to like looking at a bunch of different colors on a chart and trying to figure it out, which is never easier anyway, because I'm colorblind to begin with. So
that's a good excuse, though.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I don't know what any of these colors mean.
But I raised there because I can't tell the difference between red and green.
Red, green, you tell me. I don't even know. It must be Christmas.
But, Clayton, if I can jump in here, one of the things that we've often used to refer to this book is sort of as a launch pad or a stepping stone. So if you're somebody out there who has dabbled in GTO Wizard and thought, boy, this is a lot, and I know I need it. I know I need to get there, but I don't know how to get from where I am to there. Improve Your Poker Now is kind of that stepping stone, after which then you've got the fundamentals that you need to go on to solvers, or to go on to how to beat players who never fold, or Alex's other materials. That's what we kind of thought was missing in the poker training world these days, is that stepstone from people who understand how to play and so forth, but they're not quite ready to devote themselves to the higher level complex training that poker has advanced to.
Yeah. Well, obviously you guys have a great passion for the game. And, Topher, you in particular, you're kind of at that level yourself.
Exactly.
So you're speaking the language of your reader, which I think is always great when an author is kind of living in the same world that he's trying to relate to. So I think that's a big advantage to this book, is that we've kind of got like the voice of the fan in the booth with us.
That's
right?
the whole idea. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I know we're all very passionate about poker, but we're also busy guys with a lot to do. So I know my listeners would kill me if I had Alex Fitzgerald on the podcast and I didn't do a poker hand. So before we say goodbye, let's at least do one hand. Alex, do you have something for me? Please say yes.
I do indeed. All right. This hand happened. So I was playing online, and I had 75 big blinds in the hijack, and I had king of hearts, king of diamonds.
Wow,
it was folded around to me, and I made it 3 big blinds with 75 big blinds. And it came around to the big blind who had about the same stack, about 75 big blinds, and they called. The board came king of spades, 7 of spades, 3 of hearts. They checked to us, and what would you gents like to do here first? There's about 7.5 big blinds in the middle.
Okay, one question real quick. What is the buy-in for this tournament, and what stage are we?
Relevant. It was a smaller buy-in, not a very big buy-in. I'd say less than $50.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, what was the second question?
What's the stage of the tournament, did you say?
You are in the middle stages, very much in the dogfighting stage. Everybody's still trying to get a stack.
Okay, so we flop top set of kings on king 7.
King 7, 3, 2 spades.
King
Yes.
7, 3, 2 spades. Okay. Heads up, in position with the nuts. I don't like checking. I like betting. So I would bet maybe like a third pot and hope that he's got something he wants to call with. I mean, you already talked about this, Alex. Like nowadays, people in the big blind, they like to call with any piece. So let's hope he has a piece and he's just going to keep calling with it. Right, Topher?
Yeah.
Exactly. This is the moron. This is the guy that you want. And, we're not going to win a big pot if he's completely whiffed it. Yeah, okay, you could try to check and hope that you're going to get one bet if he makes 4th pair on the river, but that's stupid. You want a chance to get all 75 big blinds in here, and if you're going to do that, you need to bet. So whether that's a third pot, it probably depends on what you know about this guy. If he's particularly splashy, you might go even a little bigger than that if you're trying to figure out how to get all your chips in. But definitely, I think you got to bet here.
Exactement, mon frère. We are indeed betting. So we bet 2.5 big blinds, and each check raises to 6.5 big blinds. Now, what is your move right here, gentlemen? Do you raise again, or do you trap at this point?
Well, first I have to try to control my poker face and not get too excited. Man, getting check raised when you have the nuts, is there any better feeling? I mean, look, we have to figure out what his check raising range should be or is right now. If he's doing this only with sets, then it's a real easy, let's just get it in and we cooler the heck out of the guy, right? But if he's also doing this with some gut shots or maybe some other weak draws that are going to stop being aggressive if I keep raising, then I obviously don't want to do that. So I mean, I guess we probably don't have that much information about our opponent, right?
We do not.
Yeah. All right, Topher, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of the idea is, are you going to lose the fish off the line if you check, if you bet small here? I don't think you just rip it in, because then you are going to lose anybody other than somebody who's flopped large already. You'd like to keep the guy who's got a flush draw or who's overvaluing the case king or something along those lines. I think that he went to 6.5 big blinds. So, if you go to 13, 14, he's got a lot of chips behind where he can still be pretty splashy there. If you think that if you just flat him, he's going to come out and bomb the turn, you've got plenty of opportunities now to get those chips in there. I think it's opponent specific, and maybe we don't have a lot of information. I think the only thing I don't like is just totally blasting away. But I'm fine with the idea of throwing another raise out there as long as it is something you feel he can call with more than a monster.
I want to just call, and one of the reasons for that is that I don't have many bluffs that are re-raising the check raise. So I don't have enough bluffs in my range because I'm not a wizard. I'm not a GTO wizard. So if I re-raise this check raise, I'm probably going to have like a set of kings just about every time. So for that reason alone, I think it probably makes more sense for me personally to just call here, as I would with so many draws and other weaker hands. So, Alex, what's the right answer?
So I totally blast away, and I'll tell you why in just a second. So I make it
the one thing we hated.
To be fair to this gentleman, I do think the raise size was a little bit smaller than what I wrote down here. So anyway, I have written down 18.5 big blinds, and he did call. And the turn was the 9 of spades, making the board now king of spades, 7 of spades, 3 of hearts, 9 of spades. He checks. He has 52.5 big blinds back. We have 53.5 roughly. And there's 44.5 big blinds in the middle. What do you two gentlemen want to do here?
I'll let you go first this time, Topher.
Oh, boy. Well, I mean, I think the question that the amateur player immediately freaks out about is, oh, gosh, did he just hit that spade draw? And that's where you accidentally freeze yourself and probably shouldn't. That I think this is at a minimum a spot that you can take a shot at it. If you get jammed on, now you're going to have a decision to make, but you've still got to redraw to a full house. You're probably going to have to call that off, I would think. But ultimately, I think that this is a scenario that, especially because even though that the second raise or the raise on the flop was larger, this guy's playing out of the big blind. There's a pretty good chance he's got a variety of junk. So you can't just mash the brakes here. He didn't bet into us. He certainly could have. I think that it's still full speed ahead. Maybe you bet a sizing that at least gives you the opportunity to get away if you pick up on something and he rips it on you. But otherwise, I think you're probably in a spot that you got to redraw to a full house, to the top full house. You're probably just figuring out, let's get the chips in here. And if we got cooler, that sucks.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think he does have the flush some of the time because
absolutely
a lot of the range that check raise calls is spades, right? But when those hands get there, do they check? I mean, I guess they do a lot because Alex kind of took the lead on the flop, right? With his putting in the last raise there. But I know some guys, they don't check when that flush comes in. They see that card and they have to get some more money in right now. You know, the pot's pretty big. So again, like, you know, without having specific information on our opponent, we kind of have to base it on the population of the small stakes online community as a whole. And I don't know. I think we're going to be up against a flush a lot, but I also don't really want to check. I mean, I think it's not so much. Well, yeah, we do have the full house outs that you mentioned, but there's also just, can I get value from hands that are not a flush if I bet again? And I think the answer is yes. We have two pair. We have sets that we were beating on the flop and that we're still beating now, even when this scary card shows up. So for me, I just want to keep betting. And I hope that's what Alex is going to say he did too.
We do keep betting.
Yes.
I bet 12.5 big blinds, and this gentleman went all in for 52.5 big blinds. What is your move?
Yeah, we call. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
We have to call.
Yeah, but we don't like it.
So
depending upon what this guy is like, this is one of the things that we talk about in the book is against amateur players who don't bluff enough. You got to take some time and think about, okay, wait a second. What are we hoping to see here? Or are we just hoping that we're going to fill up and that there's enough outs there to justify it? But I think you're probably right that we're probably stuck doing that. But it's one of those ones that you're kind of like, okay, slow down and let's at least think through this before we snap it off. Are there hands out there that, you know, just one of the things I remember writing is visualize him turning over his cards. Is there a hand you want to see, or are they all spades? Or you're just hoping to God that you fill up?
Absolutely. And yes, if you're playing against a very passive opponent, especially in a larger buy-in, and all of a sudden he gets very excited or she gets very excited and is piling chips in, and it's the first time in 6 hours, you want to slow down. Now, if you have top set, that's going to be very difficult, but you should really think twice. Now, when it comes to this particular hand, this is under a $50 buy-in. This is a re-entry tournament, like most tournaments are re-entry tournaments.
Are we still in the re-entry period?
Yes, I should have mentioned that earlier, but
yes.
It doesn't really matter because of what I'm about to say. I call, he has 8 of spades, 5 of hearts. The river's the 2 of hearts. And the reason I picked this hand is it shows you how much poker has changed quite a bit in lower buy-ins. In lower buy-ins, so one of the things I do now is I give people every opportunity to keep coming back at me because they will find the aggression. I feel like, not to get too serious, but I think there used to be a time where the money meant something to people, the USD meant something to people, and they wanted to preserve it. That time is gone. Many people feel like, I don't even know what my cash is worth anymore. When I look at my grocery bill, when I look at my gas bill, when I look at how much things are costing, and since the money doesn't mean much to me anymore, and I feel like I'm getting screwed at the gas pump, I feel like I'm getting screwed at the grocery store, I don't want to get screwed at the table. So I give people every opportunity to come back at me. I fast play everything. I never take it slow anymore. I do the big sizings, and time again, I am rewarded. Time and time again, people pay me off because they always think somebody is after them to get them at this stage in 2026 in poker history. So I love that you guys did want to bet and call it off on that turn. There was a time where that was only a flush when people were much more risk averse. And that was certainly a bad system to be in. That was certainly a bad situation to be in. We are not in that place anymore. People are finding every chance they can get in re-entries and small buy-ins to blast away. And that's what makes, to take it back to the WSOP that we were discussing earlier, what is so compelling about the WSOP is those are some of the few tournaments every year that people actually do take very seriously at a certain point, because the prestige of a bracelet is so much more profound than trying to win a $400 tournament at your local punter festival in Cleveland or whatever you're going to be playing. So, you know, when you do get deeper, or even if you're just in a freeze out, or when you're in the middle stages of a bracelet event, people are going to revert back to, okay, I'm a station, I'm not going to raise unless I really like something, or I am a nit, I'm not going to raise unless I really like something. But if you're playing a smaller buy-in right now, especially online, especially versus Americans, especially with re-entries, open up both barrels, keep firing, because the money is coming, man. It's a lot of variance, but it's a lot of fun.
I love this theory that you espouse here, Alex. I hope a group of graduate students from Stanford University or something do a study on how consumer sentiment and how people feel about the value of their dollar affects the way they
how they play a flush draw.
Is there a correlation or not? I really want to know.
Somebody's got a thesis that they need to propose. Let me jump in on that, though, Alex. You know, I mentioned this earlier. Alex has talked about, really, in today's era, you've got to be prepared to rebuy tournaments and things like that. But I think this right here is an illustration of, if you find yourself in that spot that you kind of know, hey, I'm only on one bullet, this is the type of situation that you're looking for. You wait, you flop that top set. Some of the time, you're going to pile the money in and you're going to lose. That just goes with the territory. But today, if you are in the re-entry period against these loose cannons, there's your opportunity to get them to give you all the chips in one hand and put you in a position that you can ride that one bullet in the same way that the guy who's going to be 4 bullets deep and have to make the final table just to make his money back.
Amen, brother.
Well, this is always great. I love having you guys on. I wish I could have you on every single week. Before we say goodbye, I just want to give you guys a chance in case there's any questions you wanted me to ask that I didn't get around to. If there's just anything else you want to say, Topher, why don't you go first?
Sure.
Anything else? Yeah.
No, I appreciate it so much. Obviously, last time I was here, we got to talk about my Uncle Dan, and you then gave him the nickname that he'd be Broadway Dan because he's
Dan.
If he became a poker player after writing nonsense. But I actually want to, first, thanks so much to everybody who's listened, who checked out the book. We hope you'll check it out in audio. And if you know somebody that would say, I'm never going to sit down and read a poker book, but I'd listen to it in the car, or I'd listen to it at the gym if it might make me a little better, this is what we are going for. And it's why we precisely wanted it out before the WSOP for that guy who's taken that 1 week trip. So we hope you'll check out Improve Your Poker Now. And then I'm going to tee up Alex, because the one thing we haven't talked about is that you can get Alex to come to your town.
Oh yeah, we're doing that now.
I think this is hilarious. And what a great opportunity if you got a few friends who want to work on your poker.
Oh my God, it's actually been a lot of fun. I was out in Albany and I was doing a charity tournament and teaching those folks, and we got to raise some money for a good cause. It's a blast. I love getting to see all these different towns around the United States, teach good people how to play poker. So if you're interested in that, go to pokerheadrush.com, that website one more time, pokerheadrush.com. It has my information there. You can also sign up for the daily strategic newsletter. You get 3 free training products just for signing up. And when you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get emails from me. Just respond to every one of them. It will actually be me, and we can talk about private lessons over Zoom, private lessons if you actually want me to fly out to your town, or whatever else. I would really appreciate having you on the newsletter. I'd love it.
The book is called Improve Your Poker Now, a guide for serious amateurs, written by Alex Fitzgerald and Topher Goggin. You guys are the best, and I appreciate you coming back onto the TPE podcast.
Thank you for having us, Clayton.
Absolutely thrilled to be here. It was great.
So for Topher and Alex, and for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, with special thanks, as always, to our very generous sponsor, Jaka Coaching. My name is Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.